Hi, Pagan Shooter here. I want to first apologize for releasing the cleaning video prior to the review video. It's not the way I normally would do this. Unfortunately, as you can tell by my voice, I've been very sick over the past couple of week. And of course, travel with my actual job has kind of prevented me from doing this video. So I wanted to get this one through, and this one is actually going to be a review and shooting video. I did take you guys with me to the range just down on the way, well, a little ways down the way, and I did take a little bit of video of shooting it, just so you can see how it functions and the ability of the gun. And this review would be for the CZ70, otherwise known as the CZ-VZ-OR70, which is the actual model. The VZ-OR70 is actually the model. It's been nicknamed a CZ70, and the 70 comes from the original manufacturing dates of, or release date of, this model of weapon. It did replace the CZ50 or VZ-OR50, and both of those were in 7.65 millimeter, which is translated here in the US to 32 ACP. Same exact cartridge. It's just called something different in Europe. Manufacturing for this started in 1970. It is a, this one was actually manufactured in 1975. By the way, real quick, for you safety Nazis, it is unloaded. The magazine is now out, and it is unloaded. There is nothing in the magazine. All right, so let's continue. Manufacturing started for these in 1970. This one itself was manufactured. I don't know if you're going to be able to get a view of that, but this one was manufactured in 1975 by that stamp right there, right under my finger here. So this one was actually manufactured in 1975, so this is a 42-year-old pistol. And I can tell you from taking this to the range, this functions excellent for being 42 years old. When I got it, it was a little stiff, and it seemed like it was grabbing a little bit. I did do a light cleaning on it, which I probably should have done a little more intense cleaning than I did. But it did function. If you look, there is some physical wear on the outside of the gun. It is not a brand new gun, you can definitely tell. This one was definitely issued to somebody to use, so there is wear on it. This pistol is imported by Intern Arms out of Houston, Texas. It did come to me in a box, this very box, and inside the box was just a standard fare, the corrugated, or the soundproofing, as I call it. They did come with a lock. This is a very interesting little cheapy lock, a plastic one. And it came with a manual, just a minor manual. The lock itself is kind of interesting because this is literally two pieces of plastic with a bolt going through it. The bolt head is there, and it's unscrewed using this key, and it's kind of a heavy key. But that is the cheap lock that came with it. I do not believe that is from the manufacturer. It's probably something that was put together so it was legal to sell here in the US. A lot of states require that the gun comes with a trigger lock, so I believe that was probably something that was added by Intern Arms as a to make it legal here. The gun is a solid steel construction, except for the grips, which are plastic. It's the only plastic. Well, that and the base of the mag is plastic as well. Everything else appears to be steel, including the follower. You'll see that the grips themselves are plastic and textured. A very interesting thing. And this being manufactured back in the 70s, it's kind of interesting that would have the plastic on it. Let's see. This gun came with a single magazine. It is listed as an 8-round magazine. However, this one holds 9 to my surprise. So it is technically an 8+1. 8 in the magazine plus 1 in the barrel. Gun. This one, like I said, holds 9. So not normal. I have a feeling that's probably going to be the beginning of problems with this magazine, so I may have to recondition the spring or even replace the spring at one point or another. I may even end up having to replace the magazine at one point because of that. So if you can get an extra round in, it's not always a good thing. Sometimes it's because there's a malfunction in the spring. So far, this has performed perfectly fine. I'll get into that a little bit later. So the sight system on this gun is a stationary, non-adjustable front sight and a adjustable rear, but you have to swage it back and forth. So you can't just manually adjust it with a screw. You actually have to tap it left and right using a tap and a hammer. The sights, actually, the sight picture is actually kind of minimal. Let's see if I can get a shot of what that looks like for you. If you see down that, it's not that great a sight picture. However, the sights do appear to be on as far as windage. I was hitting close to where I was aiming. However, it does appear to shoot a bit low. Unfortunately, there's no way to adjust for elevation, so you really just have to kind of know your gun. There is a way, I guess, you could file down the front sight, and that would bring up your sight picture a little. However, I don't suggest doing that. My belief on that is use your sight picture, know your gun, use that sight picture as a guide of where to aim, and you'll have to cover the rest yourself. Adjusting the actual physical, non-removable, non-adjustable sight is never a good idea. I found that to be the same with my my Heritage Rough Rider, and I never made the adjustment on that. Yet I can hit where I know where to aim with that, so I know how to aim with it. Let's see. So this gun is a hammered gun, meaning it has a hammer on it. It is right now cocked and ready. It is a single action and double action pistol, meaning when you pull the trigger, it will pull the hammer back, or you can pull the hammer back and pull the trigger, much like a revolver. The single action on this revolver is actually a pretty decent pull. The trigger weight on the single action is actually probably around 5 pounds. The trigger weight on double action is close to 10 pounds. In fact, I've handed this to my wife and asked her to try it, and she was not able to pull the trigger with double action. And that could be the smaller hands, it could be the not used to pulling the heavier triggers. Even myself, it doesn't feel as steady when I'm pulling in double action. So it is quite a trigger pull in double action. Now, I wouldn't suggest something like this as a self-defense weapon. I mean, obviously you could use it for that, and it was used for military or for police use as a sidearm for many years in the Czech Republic, which is where it's from. By the way, I didn't mention that before, but this was manufactured in the Czech Republic, and it was only imported by Interim Arms, by the way. The serial numbers on this one do match. You can see. The last round hold open on this gun is actually a result of having the magazine in. The magazine is what holds it open and locks it open, and then once you remove it, it remains locked open. And then at that point, you can go ahead and release the slide by pulling it back, and it drops back. The standard features of this gun are a safety, which features a cocked and locked feature. So now the trigger cannot be pulled even though it is cocked. It also includes a decocker. So now that it's on safety, see it's on safety, I can push this down and it decocks the gun. So it does feature a decocker. So there's supposed to be a channel or a loaded chamber indicator on this. However, I didn't witness that. I didn't look for that during the firing of it. So I'm going to have to double check that one. I do believe... Okay, so the one thing I do have a problem with this is the mag release. The mag release on this, most guns you can just push and it'll release. And you heard the click, but it won't release. What you have to do is actually push very positively on that button to push it out. So there is no just quick drop release. For me, this gun isn't going to be a self-defense gun, so I'm not that concerned. But if you were planning on carrying it and you want an extra magazine, putting in another magazine is going to be a little more difficult than your regular standard gun where you would push the button, drop free, or you pull it out, and then you put in your next magazine and rack the slide. In this case, you're going to have to turn the gun, pull the slide, and literally pull on it to get it to come out. These do not drop free, so you have to pull on it to get it out. That and the takedown appear to be a little more difficult. Now, you saw in the cleaning video, you push on the gun to the release or the disengage here to release the slide in the back here. So when you go and you push on that, it's a really hard push. So you rack the slide back, so it's cocked, and then you push it all the way back and you lift. Now, if you look, to push it down, I'm pushing a lot of pressure with that finger. It is very difficult to push. It is not something that you're probably going to get right away. It will be a little more, it's a bit stiff. However, it is doable. It's something that you will be able to do it. You just have to push really hard on that release button. One of the other things I thought was interesting is this right here, this piece right here, is the slide hold open. So when you get your magazine in there, and we'll do that, you'll see the magazine pushes up on this piece here, which is what catches the slide back here. So once you release the magazine, I'll get that out of there, and you pull it out of the gun, this piece still pushes against the slide, which is what still holds it open once you brought the magazine back out. When you pull back on the slide, this will drop down, and then you're able to release the slide forward. That is your last round hold open. So I took it to the range, and let me put this back together. Oh, and to put it back together, you put the slide back on properly. Go back and watch my cleaning video. I go into more detail on that. Push in your release button, and you slide it back, drop it down, and it'll slide right forward, and you're ready to go. So I took this gun shooting, and I tried it out, and I had absolutely no failures. It fired every time I pulled the trigger. I used standard Winchester white box during the shooting, and I'll put up some video here of me shooting it. And the recoil was very manageable. It was very light, typical 32. It's a pretty heavy gun, so the recoil on it are very minimal. Kind of reminds me of of the old Ruger P85 that I had, where the weight of it minimized the recoil of the shot. So the recoil is very minimal. The muzzle flash was actually pretty substantial in some of these shots. I could see that from behind the gun. The accuracy was decent. I was able to even just starting off, just getting to know the gun and how it fired, I was able to get pretty close to where I was aiming. The trigger pull in single action was actually pretty decent. It was when the gun was in double action that I had a little more trouble pulling the trigger, getting it on target, and getting the rounds where I wanted them to go. Single action was shooting a bit low, and I went through about 50 rounds. I want to do more. I just got one box because I wasn't sure how it would perform. I didn't want to invest a lot of ammo in case there was something wrong with the gun. And once again, I don't know the history of this gun. I only know the history of the model. The gun itself appears to function 100% flawlessly. It felt good in the hand. It is a good, you're able to get a really good purchase on the grip as well as the gun. The slide rides high enough to avoid your hand. There's a minor dovetail to the back of the gun, but it's really not, it really doesn't stop your hand from sliding up. And I've got fat hands, so my hand will slide up a little bit. I did take a little hit from the hammer, but not too bad. The gun itself appeared to function rather well, and it was rather accurate. Was shooting a little bit low, but otherwise was a very decent firing weapon. I did have a little pain in my finger from what felt like vibration in the trigger after I pulled the trigger. I could feel a little bit of vibration in it. So at the end of the day, after the 50 rounds, I did feel a little bit of pain in my trigger finger. However, it was nothing that wasn't anything really too bad. I think it was more of just the harmonics of the solid steel gun with a solid steel trigger, a very solid gun. But I believe that the vibrations had to go somewhere, and the trigger being the thinnest, lightest part of the gun, that's where it's going to go through. Other than that, I'm pretty impressed with this gun. Not really going to be anything I would use as a self-defense weapon. This is more going to be for range candy, and actually quite enjoyable to shoot. But in the end, once again, it was very comfortable to shoot. But what do you think? Have any of you purchased anything from CZ or Interm Arms International or Interm Arms out of Houston? What do you think of the CZ70 or VZOR 70? Would you prefer the CZ50? Go ahead and comment, like, subscribe, share. Go ahead and make sure you hit that alert from the subscription, the bell there next to the subscribe. That way you're notified whenever I post a video. And we'll see you next time.